Hello, welcome to this project update for the Dreadfire portal. Well, you saw as I had primed the structure two different colors, and now is about basically establishing the foundation colors of the two stone types. So the first thing I did was go through. I actually used only 5 different paints at this point to come up with the effects that are visible on the model. The first one, I started with the what I would consider like the basalt, which is the grayish section. Now I had used a charcoal. You can see here how dark that is, over the black primer as a kind of the darkest foundation of the actual gray of the rocks. Now these are from Delta, their ceramic coat line. I find those are actually pretty good for terrain, good characteristics. So I used the charcoal first to get it a nice deep dark gray, but then I went through and it mixed in some white with it. Now what that did is it gave me kind of a mid-tone gray, still on the darker side but still mid-tone. And I did a technique which I've heard other people refer to as kind of wet brushing. So you don't actually, it's kind of like dry brushing. What you do is you load the paintbrush up a little bit, and then you start, taking the paint off, on a paper towel or whatever but you don't quite go as far as you would with dry brushing, taking the paint off. You keep a little bit more on there, and then use that. And I wet brushed all of the stone structure, the basalt stone structure, so all the gray became kind of a mid-tone gray, with the darkest sections staying that charcoal. Now that gave kind of a pretty close effect for what I was looking for, but I need to go one level more, and I used Delta's ceramic coat mudstone, and this actually is a mid-range between gray and tan. So I'm actually using that in 2 ways. I'm using it to add a slightly different color palette to the gray while picking out the hard edges and what have you with an actual dry brush. But because of that is a blend between the tan and the gray, when I actually dry brush the flagstone steps, it will help tie the whole thing together. So what I've already done is put the mudstone highlights with typical dry brush technique, and then up here did the same exact thing, but it's much more subtle. Now when I went on to the stairs themselves, I took a slightly different approach. This is only what I would consider base coated, and then graded, I guess is what you call it. I don't know what term you'd really use, but it was obviously primed with the Army Painter skeleton bone. What I decided to do then is I needed to go through and clean up all of the edges along here where it joins, where the portal was. Matter of fact, this was pretty much just black primer up there, so I had to change that. So I started by using what I would call a base coat for that touch-up of Anita's Latte. I don't particularly like this brand at all. I don't like the way the carrier holds on to pigment. I don't think it has enough pigment for the carrier. But in this particular case, it worked well because it gave me a chance to heavily wash those dark areas and end up with some good gradation on the flagstone on the side. And then once I did that, which is kind of a lighter color, I went over and used Ceramic Coat's Trail Tan, which is more of a traditional tan, very similar to the skeleton bone, and then went over. Now this is washed is not even the right word for it. I picked apart, put some paint down on the stones in some areas, and then brushed it around unevenly. So that's why we've got the different colorations across the stonework. On the side, I did the same thing with the latte color as well. So that way it's not a nice even coat, but you get a lot of variation in color. And if you've ever seen flagstone, it's pretty easy to tell. Matter of fact, this one paver right in the center, I mean, it's starting to look a lot like real stonework. So that's where I'm at now. The next step is going to be first to use a strong tone, Art Painter strong tone, and go through all of these cracks here on the model to kind of highlight, darken up the stonework, make the edges look crisp, the creases crisp. I won't be doing that on the gray at all. And then once I've done that, I'll go through and actually do some dry brushing very lightly with the mudstone to kind of tie the two stone types together slightly. That'll just help it soften it, so it won't be such a stark contrast. The next step will be on the top here, where I've got the skulls. Let's see if I can get that to look good. My lighting isn't the greatest right now. Okay, there is a ring of skulls, and I'm going to actually paint these as if they were real skulls. So there'll be a skull bone I've got mixed up. Just inside, it's bordered by what looks like should be some sort of a metallic rim trim. So I'm going to actually paint that up a dark gold, front, inside and out. And then there'll be some details on the columns that will also be, gold. Like right there, the hanging from the skull is a little pendant. That piece right there, that placard, will be, I think, probably be gold. We'll have to see. I'll think about it. Anyway, then the final step will end up being painting those flames. That's going to take the longest time, so I'm holding off on that for a bit. So that's the project so far. I think it's actually been fun getting into the terrain side of things. I haven't done this terrain for a while, and because yes, the landing pad was a slightly different technique. This is stonework, so it's really nice. It's been very fun. So Dave, I think I would be interested in doing that Eternity staircase as well. So, but I don't think I'll be able to get both of them done by the time Frostgrave starts. This one will be done. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed the update. Share, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.